Okay, this is 12 Nights of Judicial Corruption, Night 9. Night 8, we mentioned that the judge could perform some act from the bench or fail to do some act from the bench that could indeed be an intentional breach of his duties and an actual crime, a violation of a fundamental constitutional right under the color of law of being the judge on the bench. Now what happens then? Well, he got away with it until you appeal it. But what if the appellate court elects to allow the judge to commit that crime? Let's say we accept it was a crime. They know that he did it, and they find some cause based upon some inadequacy in your appeal that they could still rule that the judge cannot be reversed or will not be reversed based upon what they believe is good faith. It may or may not be good faith basis, but they're claiming that. They know the judge violated your constitutional rights. They know he committed a crime. But they do have some basis of good faith. What can you do? Well, here's the rub. There's a law that says he who knows of a felony and fails to report that felony is guilty of misprision of a felony, a federal felony in and of itself. So the appellate judges, the 3-judge panel or the 7 of the Supreme Court of Florida, have a lot of explaining to do as to why they're not guilty of a misprision of a felony if they got sufficient cause to believe a crime might well have been committed as claimed, unless they had an equivalent basis to believe it did not actually occur, such as equivalent sworn affidavits in opposition to the affidavits that were claimed that such a crime occurred. Okay, so they might be in trouble if the FBI came out, and they would indeed have to answer questions. There's an old case that makes it clear that when a judge strays from his lawful duties, he ceases being a judge. He becomes a criminal. You do not have the right to violate the laws. Stephen Colbert reran a show from about a week or so back where President Nixon was saying, if the president does it, it is lawful, or something to the effect. It's not true for the president, and it's certainly not true for just judges. So when they commit crimes that violate the same laws that the police officers were supposed to not violate, they should be investigated. So I have a number of appellate judges that need to be investigated, as well as a number of trial judges, for they've been covering up, stonewalling, failing to explain themselves, and if they had the FBI out, they may have a good faith basis, and they may get out of being an accomplice, perhaps, except for the fact by failing to report the crime, they become an accomplice to the ongoing crime, even if, for some reason, a criminal act in the courtroom should be ignored on appeal. I don't believe that's ever true. So all these appellate judges, up to, including the 7 judges of the Florida Supreme Court, might well, if investigated, have an indictment brought against them, might well be convicted, might well should spend some time in jail, for they know better. And it is actually open and shut that you do not fail to accord the right to be heard before you take away the right to be tried. And all the judges were aware this had occurred, and that nobody was disputing that. They were just disputing what harm does that. He would have lost anyway because the judge had already determined what he was going to do. Well, whatever. That's why you're supposed to hear it first. You're not supposed to determine ahead of time. And by his totally failing to comply with a minimum due process, substantial rights, he violated the law, and those who did not report him in, including perhaps the attorneys in the room, might well have some explaining to do why they should not be prosecuted for misprision of a felony, or perhaps even being an accomplice and being complicit in the criminal act and in sustaining the criminal act thereafter. I hope the Bush administration will be forced to discuss this, investigate it. They know it's a crime. only with your help will they. That's what I'm up to. And this is the end of the night. Please find a way to pass this on to everybody until we get it to the media. I will work and work and work, but I don't think I alone can do it. It's in God's hands, and you're God's people. Do as you see fit, or sit on it. So far, that's the prime directive in most people's hearts, sitting on it.